Welcome back in, everybody, to another edition of the Final Whistle Sports Podcast. It's your hosts, Blaine Spencer and Joe Ciccoletti, and we done fucked up again. We keep giving you all these goddamn false promises, week to week episodes, and I will take all the blame this time because I went on vacation. I enjoyed vacation way too much. And then I forgot Joe even existed. So Joe's been a little butthurt the last week and a half with me. But I got him back on today. It'll be a fun little episode. Talk some football, a little bit of golf. It'll be fun. Joe, how you doing?
Hey man, you had to bribe me in and you got me as, oh, we're gonna talk about the Open and we're gonna break down the AFC. So I go, all right, I guess that's good enough for me. I'll be come back, welcome back to the final whistle. Just glad to see you all right. I'm just glad to see you all right after vacation. Everything's healthy, the wrist is feeling good, you're able to golf again now. That's the big thing, we
I
gotta
played
look at the
great
positives
yesterday.
here. Good for you. That's what I'm good to hear. Good for you. But yeah, now glad to be back on the microphone, the hot mic, of course, and ready to talk some NFC's breakdown. Training camp started today and yesterday. Had already a couple injury scares to begin the day. Jalen Ramsey's already out for 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Joe might be out for a little while. He's got a calf strain. I watched that video. It didn't look good. I thought it was an Achilles injury, but so looks like all good signs there. And then, yeah, we just got the ultimate hype videos right now. You got a running back too in Dallas right now, running the show down there. Mac Hollins looks like a stud for the Atlanta Falcons right now.
Here we go. Had to jab that shit in.
And what is it? Justin Herbert slinging the ball deeper than ever right now. So of course it is the hype video year for the NFL, and I absolutely love every second of it.
Have you been watching those Jets ones with Garrett Wilson going against
So
Sauce?
yes, yes.
Those are just honest, those 1v1s are just freaking filthy to watch.
It didn't last very long,
Hard Knocks is gonna be so good.
but it didn't last very long. Unfortunately, Garrett Wilson left another injury, left
I
with a tweaked
know.
ankle. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Sauce
you
cooked him too much.
got that right. You got that right. No, but it's a good time, man. We're starting to get into this full fledged. I mean, I believe the Hall of Fame games in less than a week till that begins, and then
Scary.
preseason starts right up in the. We're almost here. We're almost here. I think we got as what's his name? Scott Drew. No, what's the guy from Red Zone? What's his name? Scott
Scott Hansen, baby.
Scott Hansen, baby. I think we got 7 more Sundays until the NFL season begins. So I cannot wait.
What's his slogan? It's what? Is it 14? Is it 10 hours of commercial free football?
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
it's
that's
something
it.
like that.
Yeah, I think that's it. So,
And 10 hours of commercial free football starts now.
yeah, I love the countdown, dude. I'll put the countdown on like 30 seconds before just so I can watch the countdown for it. It's great. Absolutely love it. So, all
The
right,
30
Blake.
seconds of mental preparation.
Yeah, right. Get my fantasy football team together real quick before I lose all of them, probably. So, all right, let's
There
get
you
into
go.
the beginning of the NFC East breakdown. I know we broke down the AFC East last time we were on. To be honest with you, I don't even know when the last time we was on. So we'll break down the NFC East this time. Um, for the folks out there, of course, that includes the Philadelphia Eagles, the Dallas Cowboys, the Washington Commanders, and the New York Football Giants. So let's start out with the division winners of last year, the Super Bowl, or excuse me, the NFC representative in the Super Bowl, the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's start with them. A few things to note. Key additions for them this year was Rashard Penny from Seattle. The running back came over. DeAndre Swift came over. Greedy Williams, cornerback from Cleveland, came over, and they drafted a big stud rookie from Georgia in Jalen Carter, who's been looking incredible in camp so far. A couple losses they did have, though, was C.J. Gardner-Johnson with the Detroit, Marcus Epps, and T.J. Edwards, a couple guys that they lost there. Over-under is set at 11.5. And the other big news is Jalen Hurts locked up for a little while here in Philadelphia.
Got the bag.
Got the bag. So, Blake, talk me through what you think about the Eagles. Do we see a repeat? Do we see a collapse? What are we thinking here for the Philadelphia Eagles?
I think the Eagles are still the front runner in the NFC East. I don't think you can discredit that. I think it's not as big of a gap as it was though last year. Why? I think the Cowboys have gotten a little bit better. I think the Giants have gotten a little bit better. Both teams have gotten better, and both teams were in the postseason themselves, right? But this team lives and dies with Jalen Hurts, right? With his arms, his legs. The man got the bag, like you mentioned, rightfully deserved.
I completely disagree on that, but okay, go ahead. I'll wait till you finish.
Excuse me?
I completely disagree that it essentially relies on Jalen Hurts, but okay.
Oh, I mean, what? So what happens if he gets hurt?
It
If
doesn't
he
come.
hypothetically goes down, what happens? I mean, this is arguably I think they're the most complete team in the NFC.
I completely agree. I completely
I
agree. They do
completely
not have a
agree with it.
question mark.
Yes. But I
But
think if the quarterback is such a vital component of this team's offensive ability, I don't discredit that they would make the playoffs potentially without him, right? But I think he makes them from a playoff team with him being in the lineup, playoff team to a Super Bowl contender for the Philadelphia Eagles. Do you disagree with me on that?
no, I agree to that statement, but to turn it back on you, if you kind of lose any quarterback within any kind of playoff matter team, they're not going to be as good as what they were before. Okay.
Well, that's
My
fine.
big,
The
but
Washington
my big,
Commanders won't be there anyway, so there's no point.
got that right. But my thing is, I think if they get injuries on the offensive line, that's where they're going to get implemented. Last year, that
Heavy run
offensive line
team, yeah.
was super healthy last year. I mean, think of the only one that really got hurt was like Lane Johnson, slightly missed a couple times, and he came back for playoffs ready to rock and roll. But if they lose Kelsey, Mailata, potentially Dickerson, and then Lane Johnson's always good to miss 2 to 3 games. What does that do now to the running game that was doing so well? What does that do to Jalen Hurts now with less time in the pocket? Now it's going to make him run out. Is he going to be able to run more? Now does that involve him with an injury? Is that going to still able to allow AJ Brown to get separation on the deep passes? Like all that comes into play for me. It's truthfully enough, Jalen Hurts is a great quarterback, and I think he's an up and coming star. But he's also been handed one of the best offensive line I've seen over the last 10 years. So if they start going down, they start crumbling, what's going to happen to him back there? That's my thing, and that's the reason why I
Okay.
said I don't think it all relies on Jalen Hurts.
And I think that's a fair statement, right? The team was the most complete offense in football, with especially how heavy their run game really was to open up the pass, right? Not many teams do that anymore. It's pretty much the pass to open up the run, or it's just the air raid 24/7. So this is a team that relies heavily on being balanced. So I do agree with that offensive line statement for sure. I think another thing that people kind of miss out here, right, is that this team doesn't have their offensive or defensive coordinators now, right? Both of them are gone. How much does coaching really come into a role with this team? I think that's another thing that people kind of are still trying to figure out when it comes to how big of a deal losing these two coordinators is really going to be. How does Jalen Hurts' progression move on now with a new person calling the plays? How does this defense become reliant on their scheme when they're someone that's internal in that team took that role as well, right? But it's a different type of play calling, different type of slight tinkers to scheming. So I think that's another thing that we have to look at. And don't forget, they've got arguably the toughest schedule in football this year.
Yes. Yeah, I completely agree. I think there's a couple things for sure, though, that the Philadelphia Eagles is going to do this season. They're going to be able to get pressure with their front four now with the addition of even Jalen Carter to this team as well. That's no question about it. You know you're gonna have a couple dogs on the cornerback side and Bradbury and Slay back again. That's great for them as well. There's still always going to be that question mark at linebacker, especially now with TJ Edwards leading. And the other thing for certain is they're going to be able to run the ball. Now with DeAndre Swift and Rashard Penny. I think Rashard Penny is actually a yards per carry guy. I think last year had over 5 to 5.5 yards a carry until he got injured. So he's
The man
definitely.
can't stay on the field, Joe.
Oh, no, I completely agree with you. But when he is on the field, he is able to run the hell out the rock. And I don't think that's going to change, with him in Philadelphia. So, but, to go back to your point, I don't know necessarily if the gap's closer. I don't know if are you referring to the gap being closer in the NFC East, or are you referring to the gap being closer in the whole NFC?
NFC East. I'm talking about
Okay.
the division itself, not the entire NFC, though.
Okay, because I truly still think there's only like two teams in the NFC right
Right.
now. Like I still think it's the Philadelphia Eagles, and I think it's San Francisco 49ers. And that's kind of it. Like you can kind of make cases for other teams, but I don't. Like if I had put my money put my mouth where my money is, I'm putting the Philadelphia Eagles, I'm putting San Francisco 49ers in the NFC Championship game, barring no injuries, of course. That's what I'm going to say. And I still think they're there. I mean, it's the first time in a little while now that there is kind of a clear-cut number one in the NFC this year.
Right.
It's the Philadelphia Eagles.
Last year we didn't even have that.
Correct. Like I remember when I think Tampa Bay won versus Kansas City in the Super Bowl, you were kind of like, okay, I'm pretty confident in Tampa Bay, but there's a couple other teams that maybe could slip in. I remember having that conversation a couple times with people. This year, like it's the Philadelphia Eagles. They don't have a question mark, at least on paper. They don't have a question mark. Even if you go to San Fran, their question mark is still the biggest position in the game, the quarterback position.
Right.
What is going on with that? Like the Philadelphia Eagles, to me, don't really have that question mark. And if there is, it's okay, their linebacker position. They've had that question mark for 15 years now. So to me, that's not a question mark for them. That's just a staple of who they are.
True. And I think what you're making with the San Francisco point honestly kind of separates the gap even more, right? You have three decent starters potentially, that three options for San Francisco. Like you have Trey Lance, unknown commodity, right? Really. Brock Purdy had that great little run.
Lightning
Injury,
in a
coming
bottle.
off of an
Could have been.
injury, a significant injury for a quarterback. So even more of an unknown commodity now coming back. And then you have a veteran in quotation marks in basis of based off of the other two guys, right? And Sam Darnold, who can't figure it out in the last two spots he's been. So does that even potentially separate Philly even more? You got to kind of lean in that direction, right?
Yep. So that's when you said there's kind of a gap, I had to clarify, but like I think the gap is still the same. Even with the additions that the Cowboys have, the additions that the Giants have had, and the additions that the Washington Commanders have had, there's no gap for me. I think the gap is still the same. Especially, I'm not saying from what it was at the beginning of last year, but from the end of last year, the gap to me is still the same. The Eagles got better, the Cowboys got better, but still, the Eagles still made the same exact moves that the Cowboys would have made, in my opinion. And that's why I still think the Eagles are the number one, clear cut number one in the NFC.
Okay. How much do you, I think their schedule might hurt where they actually fall though in the conference.
Yeah, like I don't think they get to.
I don't know if they get that one seed because of how difficult that schedule is going to be.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. I went through their schedule a little bit earlier before we started, recording, and I think last year they were 13 or 14 wins, something of that nature. They
Yeah,
ended up finishing.
right. I don't think they
I,
get there.
Vegas has them at 11 and a half. I think that's pretty spot on. I went through and I actually did, had a record. I did come up with a record. Maybe we'll talk about it at the end. I know we're not doing records too much, but I came up and that's pretty damn spot on for me.
Sure.
11, I think 11's the magic number they'll get to, but they're going to lose probably at least 1 to 2 divisional games. It's just what the game it's what the NFC East is.
Yeah.
But they do play a lot of tough opponents, especially in the middle of the pack there. I do know they play Kansas City. I'm pretty sure they play Buffalo. They play Miami. It's a lot of difficult teams in the AFC that they're going to have to go through as well. And they're all not at home. They are away
Yeah.
sometimes in areas you don't want to be away in. So I completely agree by that. I don't think they get back to that 14 win mark. I think they're definitely 2 to 3 games less in that case. I do agree with you.
Good. I'm glad that you agree with me for the first time in a long time. So that's
Yep,
always nice.
no problem. I gotta just disagree a little bit there. So all right, let's move over to second place team in the NFC East last year, the Cowboys. Jerry World Dallas Cowboys. Key additions for them, just two that I was really notable for me. Brandon
Sure.
Cooks came over from Houston Texans, wide receiver, and they grabbed a veteran, a cornerback in Stephon Gilmore from Indianapolis. They didn't really have many losses, I thought. I mean, Zeke was their loss, I guess. Uh, the last time we saw him, he got plowed over as a center. So that's the last thing I remember. And then the team went to shit from there. So yeah, they made they made some moves. I thought it was good for them to get a wide receiver too now, alongside CD Lamb. Oh, I'm sorry. I did miss another key loss. I apologize for that. They lost Dalton Schultz, tight end. He went to Houston. And they also lost Kellen Moore, their offensive coordinator. So let me get into that. I think the Cowboys aren't going to be as good as they were last year because of the loss of Kellen Moore and Dalton Schultz. That's my big
You
reasoning.
think the boy wonder actually makes more of an impact than most people think?
Well, you have the bozo down there, Mike McCarthy, who can't coach crap right now. And I think Kellen Moore held it together on the offensive side enough to have this team be competent at the very least. Now, do I think the defense will be better than it was last year? Absolutely. You will actually have a cornerback too, because last year their cornerback two got torched as much as they possibly could. It was unbelievable to watch. But another year of Micah Parsons being stronger, better, and potentially being one of the best defensive edge rushers in the game, I think is going to propel this team. But I think Kellen Moore leaving, the play calling is going to be diminished slightly at the very least, and Dak isn't going to have as good of a season as he did last year.
I think that's a warranted argument. And I think the biggest loss is the one that we still don't know if it's going to be a loss or an addition at this point, and that's Zach Martin holding out. I
I
think
think he comes back. I don't.
I think he will too. But with all that's going on right now, I think he is the most critical player on that team. He is the lead blocker on their most productive run plays, their most productive short passing game, screen game goes to his side on everything. They lean heavily on him because he is arguably the best guard in football, right? So where does that line up in that regard? Because he kind of over he helps overshadow and cover up some of the offensive line's struggles on the outside at the tackle position because of how great he is on the inside. Allows Dak to step up in that type of pressure. And then I think are we going to see now a game manager style of Dak Prescott, right? The man had led the league in interceptions, and he played what 12 official games. I think it was around there, 12 or 13. So where does that lie? I think Tony Pollard being the focal back was a great decision on their part. I think we all could agree that Zeke was on his decline there in these last couple of years in Dallas, and Tony Pollard was starting to showcase his ability as a more complete back. And I think that's where the running back market really is heading towards. It's going for can you be a 3 down back and pass catch? Can you run inside the lines? Can you get to the outside with speed? Trying to facilitate all of that. Love the Brandon Cooks move. I think he is a very underrated wide receiver because of how he gets treated in every organization he's in. The man is arguably on the trading block every year, and he still is putting up like number two, number three wide receiver numbers, but he is just the caveat because he had that one great year in LA and he ended up having to be traded or not be traded, but he got that contract, right? And from the Rams, where everyone kind of argued that he got overpaid, and now it's kind of hurt his value moving forward. So where do we stand with the Cowboys, right? Didn't make any big splashes, didn't really make any key losses. You're kind of breaking even with this team. That kind of puts you in the same spot, wild card team. That's kind of where I have them at. Kind of kind of in that middle range that you're just kind of the flat line, right? That they'll probably be consistent where they are. And they got the game changer on the other side and Trayvon Diggs and Micah Parsons. So
Brandon Cooks is the Tobias Harris of the NFL. That's what I come up with.
see, so I disagree with that because he has better production than Tobias Harris ever does, but but I understand that analogy because of the contract.
Contract's always decently high,
Yeah,
but like he can get buckets, right? It's the way Tobias and Brandon Cooks is the same way. Like he can get his catches, get his
right.
touchdowns. If he's on a bad team, he looks like a wide receiver one. But if he's on a good team, how does he really do? And I guess I mean, he was on the
He's a
Rams.
middle tier, right?
So
Middle
exactly
tier
what Tobias
receiver.
Harris is then. He's a middle tier guy.
Okay.
Second option, maybe third. That's what he should be. That's what I see Brady Cooks. But uh, I think truthfully that Dalton Schultz loss is going to be massive for them. Dak Prescott was really, really keening into him last year, at the beginning of the year, especially, and the end of the prior year. He really used him as his check down blanket, right? Now, what are they going to do, right? Since he's gone now.
Sure.
Is CD going to be that check down blank guy? Is it going to be Tony Pollard more consistently out of the backfield? What's going to go on with that? I also think Tony Pollard just came off a pretty significant injury, at the end of the year. Does he bounce back right away? Like, truthfully enough, I think they're going to need another running back unless their rookie that they drafted works out right off the bat, which, rookie running backs sometimes are hit or miss, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's for them. It's you got to keep an eye out for a potential pickup maybe halfway through training camp of a running back. His name maybe could be Kareem Hunt. I don't know. Just throwing names out there.
Dalvin Cook.
And he's going somewhere else. But I think that's it. But truthfully enough, I think Dak Prescott and I think Mike McCarthy are on the hot seat this year. Like this is it for them. Like
Oh, I
figure
agree with the Mike McCarthy take. If he can't figure it out and it turns out to be the same issues it's been for the previous 2 years, you got to cut him loose.
I mean, I even think Dak as well, right? Like Dak was healthy in the playoffs last year. Dak was healthy going into now this training camp as well.
Mm-hmm.
So if he continues with it and you see another early X in the first round or they don't make the playoffs, hey, you might have to start looking elsewhere at other options because Jerry ain't gonna wait around. He wants to win. He wants to get back to the 90s or the late 80s with the Cowboys. He wants to get back to even like the Tony Romo days of potentially having a winning team. He don't want to see losing the first round, and he definitely doesn't want to see losing to an NFC East opponent who could potentially make the Super Bowl year in and year out for years to come. So there's definitely some heat under Dak's ass, and there's definitely some heat under Mike McCarthy's fat ass. I'll tell you that.
I think, well, to piggyback off of your comment with Jerry's been waiting for that since the late 80s, and it's been nowhere near that. And since that time in the late 80s, early 90s. So Jerry might be waiting a little bit longer. But with the Mike McCarthy thing, I mean, there's a reason Dan Quinn didn't leave. He knows something that everyone else doesn't. And that's if you start sniffing around that organization, everyone has the parallel that it's Dan Quinn's team if Mike McCarthy's out. So parallels are there. He didn't walk. Kellen Moore did. I think, like you said, Kellen Moore might have figured something out that he knew he was not the top guy if he stayed in Dallas, which is why he decided to walk and head over to the Los Angeles Chargers.
Like,
it lines up, right? I mean,
of course it
it's
does.
not like we're talking. I mean, we're speculating, but it's not like we're speculating like out of thin air. Like there have been dots to this. There have been whispers about all this type of stuff for the last 2.5 years. At the end of his first year, there was whispers.
I was just trying to see the potential or possibility that Mike McCarthy gets fired by like week 7 or week 8, and I don't know if that's going to happen.
His
They play the
schedule is
Giants.
yeah.
They play the Giants twice in that time. They play the Eagles. They play the Chargers, and they play the Niners. So some tough matchups in the Jets, excuse me. But you do have games against the Rams at home. You play the Cardinals and you play the Patriots. So, I mean, they might be like 500 going into like week 8 ish, but I don't think that warrants a firing per se. But you know, I don't think I said earlier, but over under for them is 9.5. Like I said, I went through the record, kind of in the same boat. It's really a good number, 9.5. Vegas knows, man. Vegas knows.
They know what they're doing over there.
I think 9.5 is a great number, and I'm not fighting it at all. I'm not going to fight it at all. So, all right, well, let's move on. We'll get to third place. Also made the playoffs. New York Giants. Key additions for them: Darren Waller, tight end from Vegas; Cole Beasley coming in from Buffalo; Jalen Hyatt, the rookie from Tennessee, quick guy coming in. And they also drafted Deonte Banks, cornerback. I believe he's out of Maryland. Very good cornerback coming out. And key departure for them was Julian Love, the safety, and they lost Richie James, got a nice little stud slot guy from last year as well. Other news: Daniel Jones got paid $40 million a year. Wasn't warranted. We talked about it here earlier, but man got paid, and Saquon was going to hold out a little bit, but he didn't want to hold out too long. So he's going to be returning potentially at $11 or $12 million a year, and he is going to be the focal point of this team, of course. So, Blaine, let's have you start off here with the New York Giants. What you think?
I think the Giants are the team that did the most, but they're gonna have the biggest step back in this division this upcoming year.
Yeah.
They made all those moves, like you said, right? Daniel Jones gets paid ridiculously amount of money, but this is a team that went 9-7-1, right? With basically game managing Daniel Jones and then relying on Saquon Barkley to get them over the hump when it needed to in crunch time, and was super reliant on their elite defense. Like you can't even undermine that. They were elite last year. But this is also a team now that has a significantly harder schedule than what they had last year. This was a team when it comes to, you got Buffalo, you got San Fran, 2 primetime games on the road. You have arguably the Dolphins. You're in Miami for that. You're in Vegas. A lot of these road games are extremely difficult, even if it's a New Orleans team that's a little hit or miss, right, with how they're going to look with Derek Carr. But again, on the road, their road schedule is not something to like sniff around at. Like this is a team that may struggle on the road this year and have to be extremely reliant on their games at MetLife. But like you said, made all of the correct moves to try and support Daniel Jones. I think they did a great job this offseason. I don't know if it's if it's going to be enough or if they're going to let Daniel Jones loose enough for that productivity to actually be showcased. They kind of kept the shackles on him until what was it, the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season, right? And he played okay in one game, played elite in the playoff game. Then he played a dud, but he was playing Philly, but it was a dud when he played Philly in those other 2 games in that last game. So where does the line get drawn? I think they're probably around the same number, but you might see. I think I would guess what's Joe's the line around 7.5, 8.5. That'd be my guess for the New York
Mine is at
Giants.
7.5.
Seven and a
7.5.
half. I think that's also very spot on. I
Okay.
think they'll be hovering around that 7 or 8 range.
Okay.
And I think they missed the playoffs actually this year.
All right. All right. I'm actually on the flip side of this. I think they made the right moves. I think they're going to be able to surpass Vegas's over under.
Okay.
I think the addition of Darren Waller is going to help this team drastically if he stays healthy. I think the addition of Cole Beasley and Jalen Hyatt is going to help out in the wide receiver room as well. I
Mm-hmm.
think Cole Beasley is going to be help wise because of also a security blanket for Daniel Jones, other than Saquon Barkley out of the backfield. I think they needed help in the secondary in drafting Deontay Banks, who arguably was the second cornerback for me coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Is a really, really good pickup for them as long as he can continue his growth there. I think Kayvon Thibodeau is going to finally take that step to what we thought he was going to be last year. And I think Evan Neal also figures it out a little bit more now going into his second year with the New York Giants. And let's not forget, they got a hell of a mind of a head coach in Brian DeBall. Like the progression or the success or what we saw from Daniel Jones in his first couple years to what we saw last year, I think is only just brushing the surface for him. I think he can do a lot better. I think, and you said it best, I think the last 4 games, you kind of saw he can play at a little bit more of a higher level. I know I give him shit about this contract. I don't think he's worth the $40 million. However, I do think he is a game manager, but I think he can be a little bit better than a game manager. He can move in the pocket. He can run a little bit. He can pass the ball to an extent. I mean, you look at that Vikings and the NFC wildcard game, you're talking in a high pressure playoff atmosphere, and he ends up pulling through in a solid game. I understand you went up against the Eagles, you really didn't have a shot. I mean, we all knew that, everybody knew that, but when they went against the Vikings, we knew there was a shot for them to win. So if Daniel Jones can improve on what he did last year, another step forward. Saquon Barkley is going to be Saquon Barkley. You know what you're going to get out of him. You're going to get 1,000 yards back. You're going to get a couple hundred yards catching the ball as well, and you're going to get him scoring some touchdowns. I think they only improved, and I still think they're going to be able to win games away from MetLife and home at MetLife, and that's what I think about the Giants.
My question would back to you, Joe, would be this is the out of the 3 teams that made the playoffs, this is the team that really didn't address their biggest need, which was offensive line. How much does that really hurt this team? They really don't have that much offensive line depth. And that was a significant issue for them last year. Daniels Jones's legs really helped them.
Yeah, but are you referring to like the interior? They have tackles already.
Yeah, it's the interior, which is
Oh,
where most of their pressure comes for
okay.
them.
Because I was gonna say, they
They
have
do
Evan
have
Neal
two
and they have
tackles. Yeah, they got
Thomas.
two
So
tackles. It's the interior offensive line. And then they do have some secondary depth issues with, like you said, with the loss of Love.
yeah,
So for them, it's going to be, can the interior offensive line hold up for in a system in Brian Daboll where he will probably move Daniel Jones as much as possible, right? To
yep.
help avoid that. But when it's time to drop back and actually pass the ball, will they hold up?
Yeah. I mean, if they were able to do it last year, why couldn't they do it this year? They were able to get the 9-7-1 last year.
It wasn't pretty, but they got there. So you're right.
No, but they also did draft the center in the second round. Hopefully he works out better than what they had already. And they also drafted, or they got two other guys in free agency. I don't know how they are. So, but like again, like I just think it's another year in the system now with Brian Daboll, and that man's a magician. Like, I didn't think he was all that. Well, I didn't know if he was all that. Let me rephrase that. I didn't think he was going to be as good as he was when he was with Buffalo. I thought Josh Allen kind of made him look really good.
Sure.
But when you watch the Giants and then you went back and watched what they were the year before, you're like, holy shit, the Giants are actually a decent team. Like they're able to win games. Yes, they're going to win scrappy games, right? But that's how Belichick was for a couple of years there. Like the defense won you games. Well, hey, they went and addressed it. They did get a cornerback in the first round, Deontay Banks, hoping to improve this defense even more than what it was. And hopefully Daniel Jones can be better. And that's what I think. I think, when we all think of Daniel Jones, it's, yeah, guy's a bum. He tripped over his own feet. He's almost scared to throw the ball. But truth be told, I definitely saw some progression in him last year, and I fully expect him to continue with that. Now with the addition of Darren Waller, top tight end in the league, and now maybe having some other weapons in the wide receiver room that is able to spread the field a little bit and get a little separation. So I think there's definitely going to be some upside for the Giants. I see where you're coming at. The regression on paper looks like it should be there. Out of the three teams that made it here in the NFC East, who would be the one that you think would out? Yeah, the Giants.
Right.
That would make sense, right? Like, It makes sense. But, you got to look on the flip side sometimes. You got to look outside the box. And, well, they did address a couple things. They lost a couple pieces, but they did address, like, their big room, which was their pass catching area. And I thought they did fairly well with what they could get with that.
Okay.
So,
it's fair.
My opinion, 7.5. That's the over-under.
That means you have them hitting big. Then you probably you guys. I think you definitely got to have double digits. We'll talk about it later.
We'll talk them after. All right, let's get to the team that we've all wanted to talk about here. They sell the owner out. They get a new owner in. Ron Riverboat Rivera still leading the way. Who the hell's their quarterback? Guy out of UNC? I don't know. Or is it the QB? Is it the QB sneak master, Jacoby Brissett? There's a lot of questions down here in Washington with the Washington Commanders. Key additions for them this year: Emmanuel Forbes, rookie cornerback; Andrew Wiley, good offensive tackle from Kansas City; Nick Gates coming from the Giants over to, speaking about off the interior line, Nick Gates coming. Yeah, how's he gonna do there, buddy? Jacoby Brissett, and the biggest loss of them all, though, of course, Taylor Heineke leaving. Terrible news for that.
Yeah.
Funny. Talk me through this. I know it's a little depressing time for you, right? And I know there's no Super Bowl admiration. There's not even a division sight in for you guys here. So what's this looking like here for the Washington Commanders?
I don't know what we're talking about. We're winning the fucking Super Bowl.
What, on Madden?
Yeah, on Madden.
Yeah.
On rookie mode.
Yeah, rookie mode. Trades on.
Trades on. Yep, exactly.
Salary cap out the wazoo.
Exactly. We're gonna be a very bad football team. As much as I'd love to say that there is some potential with this team, and there is. I mean, it's gonna be extremely reliant upon, can our defense continue to be an elite defense? 2 out of the last 3 years, we finished in the top 10 in defensive statistics. The last 12 weeks last year, we were 6th in points, 1st in yards, and 3rd down conversions those last 12 weeks. How many games of those did we win? A very small amount. But we were in games because of our defense, and that's just going to be exactly how it's going to have to be if we want to be even competitive week in, week out. It's going to come down to our defensive side of the ball. Healthy Chase Young, he's now on the hot seat himself, with his option not really getting picked up, right? So He's got that 5th-year option that he's got it now that he doesn't have because of his health these last 2 years. And then how much of an impact is Eric Bieniemy, right? I love the hire. It felt like this is a coaching in waiting type hire. That this might be it for Ron Rivera this year if it doesn't go right, and Eric Bieniemy gets the job next year. That's what his hire looked like to me. I didn't see any reason for him to leave Kansas City other than to really test his mind and kind of get out of the shadow of Andy Reid. But I felt like Kansas City was going to be his team where he just steps right in when Andy says, "All right, I'm done coaching," right? Um, and then on the downside, right? How much hope can the Washington Commanders really hold on to? You got a quarterback that's had one start, Sam Howell. He had two great, like we've talked about him multiple times on this show. Played 2 great years his first 2 years of college, played 2 god-awful years the last 2 years of college. And that's why he went from a projected mid to first round pick all the way to a 4th or 5th round pick, right? So where does that line? I mean, there's optimism, right? He's kind of got a little bit of what Kirk Cousins was, right? Coming out, kind of was like the guy that was not supposed to be there. He's got the potential though. So it's all going to be how much do we have faith in giving him the mantle? So how does that fall? And then for us, it comes down to our offensive ability. If we can't score, if we're arguably one of the worst offensive teams in the league. Like
Yeah. No,
we barely hit 20 points like a handful of times last year. Like it comes down to that. If we can't score, our defense is irrelevant anyway.
yeah. No, I agree. If that defense can return back to form what it was 2 years ago, I think you guys, that's considered a success in your season so far. Truth be told, I don't think Washington is really that far off. If you look at them, they have a
Oh,
crap ton of
You
wide
can't.
receivers.
Hold on. Before you go on your little hype fest right now, you can't do this to me because now I'm going to be running around my office like that. We actually are going to be end up winning the Super Bowl on
No,
my end, okay?
no. There's no Super Bowl expectations for me with the Washington Commanders. But what I do want to say is this: there is pieces there for them to succeed. And truth be told, Sam Howell's not in really a bad spot. He could be in a lot worse offenses right now
Mm-hmm.
than what he has right now. I mean, he has a clear-cut wide receiver one in Terry McLaurin. He has two solid wide receivers, 2 and 3, and Jahan Dotson is it Curtis Samuel? Is that the other
Curtis
one?
Samuel, yep.
Yes, Curtis Samuel. Yep. You
Solid
still
tight
have
end.
two decent running backs behind you in Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson. So as long as the O line can kind of hold up, I thought that was a little bit of the issue last year was
It's
the O
always our
line.
issue. It's
Yeah.
always the issue.
So it's going to be tough, right? Like he's going to have to hold his own a little bit in the pocket. He's going to have to take some shots. He's going to get sacked, right? But if
Right.
the defensive line, especially, can get some pressure, you got one of the best defensive tackle. Actually, you got one of the best defensive lines in the league. Chase, Payne, Sweat. There, you got guys that can. Oh, Allen too. Your front
Mm-hmm.
four can get pressure. It should be able to get pressure. Now with the addition of Forbes, that kind of help you out a little bit in the secondary as well. I know you drafted the linebacker from Kentucky 2 years ago. I don't know how his growth has been, so I'm not too familiar with that.
He's gonna be the play caller this year.
Don't be the play call. Okay. So, like I said, if the Washington Commanders could bring back that defense to what it was 2 years ago, if they're able to run the ball at a slight extent, if their wide receivers are able to kind of get moving, maybe Bieniemy can actually run some plays and maybe try to. Hal has an arm, like Hal can sling the rock, so that's not the hindering aspect for him. Like he might try to make him what Mahomes is for Kansas City, right? I know that's a lofty expectation there, but I like Sam Howell. I think he's a solid player. I think he got an unfortunate situation at UNC, but I think this year is truthfully enough is maybe to see what you got with him, right? You know what you already got with Jacoby Brissett. He's not your future, but Sam Howell, it's like, hey, you might as well take a shot in the dark, right? He might work out. And if it does, holy crap, you got to steal that. So, maybe this team might be a little better when what their Vegas over under is right now.
What is it,
So,
4.5?
no, it's higher than that, buddy. They like him a little bit. Yeah, I was surprised too by this one, but it's 6.5. I also thought it was about 4.5, 5 if I had to put money on it. So, but yeah,
Oh, I'm
it's
hammering that under.
he's hammering the under. Wow. All right. Yeah, so that's the over under.
Oh,
But
it's all about the pessimism now with this team.
but no, I
If
think
I'm
I
at
think
rock bottom, I can't be disappointed.
yes, got that damn right. All right, so Washington, Giants, Dallas, and Eagles. We just went through all four.
Yep.
MVP of the league, or the MVP of the NFC East. Who is it?
I think it'll still be Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, I could agree. I tried to find somebody else, but
You really can't. I
think
mean, for you, like you have the Giants kind of excelling this year. Saquon with a man on a mission only signed a 1-year deal. You
that
make that
true.
argument. That would be the only other person that I would say potentially could, on his own, really will his team, right? So,
Okay. Yeah, no, my MVP same thing, Jalen Hurts. I think it's just they're still the number one, and he's gonna be the number one. So,
yeah.
all right, sleeper. I'll go first here. This is where my Daniel Jones comes in. I think Daniel Jones has a great year. I think he could potentially throw for almost 4,000 yards this year. So
Okay.
I think he gets a four, and he may even throw about 500 to 700 yards on the ground, maybe even 800. I think he really shines a little bit this year.
I like that. That's not a bad idea. I think I'm actually going to be a homer here. I think because of just the team, how we're going to have to play to even be competitive in games. I think Brian Robinson's really going to put his stakehold into that team and really take the reins away from Antonio Gibson.
Okay, I like that. I do like that as well. Before we go on the divisions, I do have a severe bold take, and it's going to be well. I don't know how severe it is, but it is a bold take. I do think CeeDee Lamb will be the wide receiver one this year in terms of like I guess fantasy points wise or
Oh, you think
yards and
he's going to be a dog this year?
yeah, I truly think he's gonna have that jump of what like Cooper Kupp kind of had 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
That is
I
a bold take.
yeah, I think
Why do you say that? Do you think the addition of Cooks helps take some pressure off? Is that what you're thinking of or what?
it's more the thought of well, Amari Cooper's kind of gone, and that was kind of what it a little bit was. So he had to get acclimated to that. Now that Cooks is kind of there, he's not gonna get it. I don't think he can get doubled as much. But it's also now his third or fourth year now. He's pretty well rounded and knows what he needs to do now in this league. And as
Right.
long as Dak stays healthy, he's gonna sling the rock, Dak. Like he's gonna have to throw for 4,500 yards, maybe 5,000 yards. Well, who the hell else is he gonna throw to? Right? Like
Right.
Dalton Schultz is gone. Okay, yeah, Brandon Cooks, who okay, if you give him 1,000 yards, it's fine. Is Tony Pollard catching 3,000 yards and passes? No. Like to me, it's CeeDee Lamb. Like CeeDee Lamb probably is going to be damn near like an 1,800, 16 to 1,800 yard year. Probably maybe 11 to 13 touchdowns. Like I just see CD having a really, really, really good year. Now, does that indicate how the Cowboys are going to do? No, not at all. But that's what I think about CeeDee Lamb this year.
All right.
Yeah.
I can kind of see it. You're kind of swaying me. I'm
Yeah,
gonna hold off a little bit on that. I
that's fair.
think I think the addition of Cooks actually might hurt him a little bit because of the speed of Brandon Cooks. It's not going to be how CD's going to get all of those screen passes or those short passes. It's going to be more targeted towards Cooks and his elite speed and for him to stretch the defense. and Michael Gallup to stretch the defense. He's going to be more of that possession wide receiver working in between the numbers, that intermediate game for CD.
Sure.
I like him I think he's going to be a very value player on third down, though. Extreme value on third down. I think the Brandon Cooks addition really helps him in that regard to open it up a little bit on third down.
Yeah. All right, so let's give divisions. You want to do 4-3-2-1, or do you want to do how you want to do it?
Well, Washington's finishing in last, so I'll just go there.
All right, I
The
got
Giants are going in third.
Okay.
Dallas is in second. Philly's winning the division. I don't
All
think, but it'll be tight because I think of, like I said, Philly's division is gonna. I think Philly wins the division by 2 games.
Fair enough. I got Commanders at 4, and I was kind of gaslighting you a little about the over/under, but I only have getting 5 wins this year.
Right.
Third, I have the Cowboys. They're going to be 9-8 this year. I have the Giants. They're going to have 10 wins this year,
Yeah,
and I have the Eagles at 11. So it's going to be a game separating the Eagles, Giants, and Cowboys. So
does Giants Eagles play week 17? Does it come down to that, or does the
No.
Eagles have a 2-game cushion and the Giants
No.
beat them the last week?
Yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen. Exactly what's going to happen.
Eagles rest their guys last week. Giants need the win to get in.
Exactly.
Okay.
Couldn't agree. Yep, that's what I'm going to say. So.
All right.
All
so
right.
I think that's fair. I want to kind of, while we're on, especially with the NFC East, with Saquon finally signing a 1-year, $11 million deal. I just want to get your thoughts really quickly before we kind of shift gears here on the final whistle. Especially with how the running back market is really trending, where do you see it down the line now? The value is almost completely gone. They had to hold a Zoom meeting with the top tier guys trying to figure out where their actual value is. I think that kind of led to Barkley signing. You kind of in that meeting might have had, like, he had in quotes epiphany, right? I think they finally have come to the realization that they're going to be extremely undervalued.
Yeah. I first want to say this, and I say this about any profession, and including the NFL. I believe in people getting their money while they can, and if they do their job well, they should absolutely deserve their money. It's the first thing I want to say. Agreed. But there's always a but here. This is a lot of the NFLPA's fault. When they signed the CBA, they kind of created this market, essentially what the running back world is to be, right?
Sure.
But also the fact of the matter is that the game is changing to be more of a wide receiver market more than ever right now. You need a wide receiver 1 and almost need a wide receiver 2 in most cases, where the running back isn't more focused on running in between the tackles, but also needs to catch the ball out of the backfield, truthfully enough. And with that being said, it's just if you're not able to do that, why would you be paying that, right? So I went through kind of last year's teams that made the playoffs especially. And if you think about it, there isn't really any top running backs that got paid that is severely on a lot of these playoff teams, right? Kansas City and the Eagles didn't really have any high-paid running backs. Second overall, Buffalo Bills did not either. The 49ers had CMC, who, has his payday, and Joe Mixon with the Bengals. But truth be told, Joe Mixon isn't going to make or break the Bengals team. Joe Burrow is. Jacksonville doesn't have anything. Chargers have Eckler, who is kind of closer to the top of being paid, but still 5th overall seed. Baltimore Ravens have a plethora of running backs. They don't care about paying him. Same thing with Miami. Tampa Bay has Leonard Fournette, who was getting paid $2 million last year. Dallas Cowboys had the highest one in Zeke, who was absolute garbage last year. And then you have the New York Giants, who, Barkley got paid pretty significant still last year, and the Seattle Seahawks. So, with that being said, like, high-paid running backs doesn't execute and win you Super Bowls, according to this, right? Or according to last year. You look at the top 5 to 7 running backs in terms of cap number last year. Zeke Elliott, Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, Austin Eckler, and Kareem Hunt, and Alvin Kamara, and Aaron Jones. I mean, Aaron Jones was making $6 million. I mean, they won $14 million. There was only one running back that made over $14 million, and that's Zeke. And he's not on a team right now. So I do agree with the owners and the GMs of saying, like, I'm not going to pay you. It's really not worth it. It's not like it was back in the 2000s or the 90s or the 80s. However, I think the running backs will find a way, but they need to change their game to maybe look at more 50-50 pass catching and rushing, and not more rushing and slight pass catching. That's my thought on it.
Okay. I completely agree that they need to adapt. I think I've been extremely adamant with how now running backs need to be complete. And now they have to, and that's just being a 3-down back is what identifies to be a complete back. Like you said, the game has completely changed. Now it's gotten to the point, a lot of these college kids have come out, especially in these last couple of weeks with these negotiations. They're like, I need to learn how to play the slot. I got to kind of be at least a okay slot receiver to give myself any additional value as possible on top of my running back position, right? Like you mentioned, Barkley and Jacobs were two of the most heavily used players in football last year. Barkley had to sign that 1 year, $11 million deal, and Josh Jacobs still hasn't signed his deal at all. So, and that is two guys that took beatings last year. And both of them were coming off of pretty significant injuries the year before. So it's not like they were taking anything, that they were fresh and consistency was there. But like here, let's take a look, right? You kind of mentioned it. Zeke, 27, cut. Dalvin Cook, 27, cut. Leonard Fournette, 28, cut. Kareem Hunt, 27, cut. Joe Mixon took a pay cut. He's 26. Aaron Jones, 28, took a pay cut. Derrick Henry, 29, was apparently available to be traded this spring. So it's not like the best running back in football is off the table, right? Tennessee was open. Eckler, 28, wanted to be traded. No market for him. Barkley, 26, had to get that. And again, Jacobs at 25. You're looking at what? A 4 to 5 year window with a running back, and then you're basically looking for another one. You're basically just keeping them on a rookie deal and saying, all right, let's just start the process all over again. Maybe we'll tag them for a year if they've played out of their minds consistently for a couple of years.
Yep.
That's just where the game has trended.
But do you blame them? Right? Because you can get a running back that can run hard, maybe just got in a bad situation at a bad school. You saw some tape on him, saw some flashes, and are able to take him in the 4th, the 5th round, 6th round, 7th round, who's just happy to make an NFL team, and all of a sudden they start making their name for each other. Like this past year, for example, Kansas City Chiefs. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was the guy to be early in the season. Well, all of a sudden, Isaiah Pacheco starts running hard, coming out of nowhere. What happens in 3 years if he continues this trend of upward trajectory? If he comes up to the Kansas City Chiefs in 3-4 years and goes, all right, pay me. You know what Kansas City's going to tell him? Hey, move along. Go find another team. We'll go find somebody else. That's just what the name of the game. That's what the market is. So, but then you have on the other side, same thing in the backfield, Jerick McKinnon. Jerick McKinnon's been around for how many years now? He's been around for probably 5 to 7 years. He readapted his game. Now he's a pass catching back. And
not even a ball carrier, really. He's just made himself a specialist.
Exactly. So maybe that's the way running backs are going to have to go. You got another one, Jamal Williams, stealing DeAndre Swift touchdowns, but he led the league in rushing touchdowns, and he got a decent pay down in New Orleans now. So maybe it might have to be a special, besides adapting, maybe a specialization in something. I truthfully actually kind of disagree about the 3 down back. I don't think that's really going to be much of a thing anymore.
You
I
think
just,
it's going to go down to specialists?
yeah, I mean, I think it's been kind
And
of
it's going to
trajecting
just
that way.
become, it's going to be, you're looking at the approach that it's now quantity over quality.
Exactly. Yep. I think if you get, you know, I mean, you're kind of just starting to see it already over the last 5 years. We've kind of seen it, right? Like, truthfully enough, I think Nick Chubb is actually one of the best running backs, like true running backs, running the ball, vision wise, cut, plowing over. I think he's one of the best, but he's rarely on the field on 3rd down. It was Kareem Hunt almost every single time.
Because he can't
So,
pass catch.
exactly. I get like you still are gonna have them guys, the Austin Ecklers of the world, the Saquon Barkleys, the CMCs. I get it. They're always gonna be there. But then you're always gonna have other guys that are gonna be able to fit that role of that 3rd down. Hey, we're gonna need you to pass catch the ball and kind of just plow a guy over or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, Aaron Jones, right? You have him who could pass catch and kind of run the ball, and then you got AJ Dillon at the goal line. So I think that's the way you're going to start seeing it more to keep guys fresher longer than what it was 10, 15 years ago.
And they're going to have to understand that pay cut's just part of that deal now.
Or they just adapt, right? Like CMC was never in question about getting paid because you know what you're going to get out of him running and catching the ball. He's as good as a wide receiver is catching the ball.
Right. He is arguably their slot receiver half the time.
Exactly. So maybe that's what needs to happen for some of these running backs, I would think. Now, do I think it's right that some of these wide receiver threes are getting paid more than running back ones? Yeah, that's not right. Russell Gage should not be getting paid more than Dalvin Cook, Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry. Yeah, no. But the way the game's kind of trending, wide receiver twos also now got to get paid. I mean, you got some great duos in the league now
Yep.
between what the Eagles got, what the Cincinnati Bengals got, what the Miami Dolphins got. Like, I would rather want a Jalen Waddle. I would rather want a Devontae Smith, and I'd rather want a T. Higgins than maybe a top back, truthfully, in the league right now.
Nope. I think you're on to something there with that wide receiver too, right? That everyone now there's so much value in that market with how it's such a passing league that the numbers also get skewed for running backs, right? Even with the touches have gone significantly down. So like you said, it's now quantity of backs. Yeah, and then a lot of people have focused now more on how many hits these guys take before they come out of college. Because
Mm-hmm.
there is in college it's different. There is no quantity really, right? It is you are the quality back. You are getting those 25 to 30 touches like a Bijan Robinson, right? Who just came out into Atlanta. He's someone that was touching the ball 30 to 35 games, touches a game minimum for them to even be competitive.
Yep.
So I think it's gotten to the point where if the running back market doesn't, if running backs don't understand and their agents don't start to understand how this is moving forward, they're just going to continue and continue to decline at a rapid, rapid rate.
Now, the one thing that still holds true, though, is this is when it comes to playoff time, you still need that running back that's going to run the rock.
Yeah, the
And most
value's there. It's basically teams are playing the long game, not the short game.
correct. Like when it comes to regular season, nah, you don't need as much of it. But when it comes to the playoff time, even Kansas City will get Pacheco, get Jared McKinnon kind of rushing the ball a little bit. Super Bowl, Pacheco ran for almost 80 yards that game. Mahomes
Right.
only had 180, 190 yards passing that game. So as running backs maybe could play their cards and say, well, look, I understand you don't have that top running back, but you still need a running back in the playoffs.
Agreed.
Because if not, you ain't gonna succeed. So I don't know. That's my feeling towards it. I still go back to you. You still deserve to get paid if you are very good at your job, and they are. But you got to look at the wide receiver twos and the way the game is moving, and having two wide receivers is almost more valuable than having kind of that stud running back, in my opinion.
Yep, I think that I agree. I think that's where it's heading, or it's already headed that way. I don't think it's heading in that direction. I think we're already there, if I'm being completely honest. This
Yeah,
year kind of has highlighted that we are at that crossroads for running backs.
correct. I agree. Yeah, I
Talk
agree there.
talk some golf.
Yeah, let's switch some gears. I like that. Let's talk some golf.
Talk some golf. How about some Open Championship action, huh? The
Yeah.
151st Open Championship, and probably the one man that probably only a handful of people actually thought would had a chance to win this past weekend at Royal Liverpool brought it home. 36-year-old lefty Brian Harman, a very feisty player, doesn't get the accolades that anybody really knows about, was a very good amateur player, has won only twice on the PGA Tour, 6 years since his last victory. Joe says, I don't know my research about golf, but I'm laying down some groundwork right now. Won by 6 strokes over, I think was it 4 or 5? I think it was 4. Over Jason Day, Sepp Straka, John Rahm, and Tom Kim. Got a little dicey on Saturday. That first couple days, bogeyed the 2 of his first 4. Kind of led this tournament really from Friday morning on, and really never looked back. Got close Saturday and Sunday a couple of times, but the man was resilient, and like he said publicly, the fans kind of telling him to screw up really locked him back in when he was screwing up, to really dial it back in and take advantage of the golf course. 4 rounds under par. Joe, kind of an unsung hero type deal with Brian Harman bringing home the Open. Oh, look at that. Waggle 1, 2, 3, 4.
Unbelievable, buddy. Put the waggle away. Oh my God. You gotta be kidding me. What was that?
I love it. I loved it.
I absolutely hated it. I'm sitting there watching the broadcast. I'm like,
They
buddy,
were tracking his waggles. That's how bad it got for commentary on Sunday.
I think they counted. It was damn near like 3,000 waggles or something something
See
ridiculous
why
number.
I feel bad for the intern that got stuck with that shit. That poor intern was hating their life
The
Saturday
thing
and
is
Sunday.
I guess he's been doing this for years, and like finally it came out more because obviously the spotlight was on him more.
Absolutely.
But if I was playing with it, I'd be like, dude, what are you doing? Get your shit together. Like, I get it. You need to take your time. Sometimes you got to get your head in the game, as an avid golfer. Like some people I know, like that kind of play a little slower. Like I just know going in, like, all right, it's gonna be a little longer of a hole. But Jesus Christ, there was times where I'm like, all right, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm like, he would do the same thing. He'd waggle, like, put his head up and down. I'm like, buddy, you can't even look that quick. Like, what are you looking at right now? Like, your head's not looking out that
It's
quick.
just like a tick. It's like a natural tick that he has.
God, unbelievable. Um,
Played
yeah,
great
no,
golf though.
I'm gonna tell you the truth. It was very uneventful though, from a
Oh
viewer
no, it was a
perspective.
very the tournament was over Friday afternoon.
Like, I just remember like Saturday, Rom had an 8 under day, and you're like, all right, Rom's gonna be in the mix. And I remember talking to a buddy of mine, and I had a little money on Fleetwood, and I was like, dude, if Fleetwood can get the 200 day and Harmon, goes 1 or 2 over, I'm back in business. And no, it's just like
Always
what
thinking
was
about the bottom line with you. Always
yeah,
the bottom line.
exactly. I'm like, I'll be back in business now. Fleetwood shoots even, Harmon shoots 1 or 2 under. And then Sunday rolled around, and I think by the time I got to about the 10th hole, I was like, yes, it's it. Like, there's no point of watching his back nine, right? Like, even if he goes,
I turned it off after he birdied. I think he birdied 6 and 7. He'd gotten it back up to 5, right? I
yeah,
tur I turned it off after the seventh hole.
yeah, like it was just so like uneventful on Sunday. Like a couple of these majors, unfortunately, they just were kind of uneventful. Didn't have that like spark ending that you wanted, or like like what was it, the U.S. Open last year, with Fitzpatrick and Pereira. Like that was like so exciting and finish because Pereira put it in the creek, and then Fitzpatrick was able to make it, and Will Zalatoris was in the playoffs. Like it was an incredible finish.
Right.
But this Open was just uneventful. I mean, look, Harmon played a hell of a round at 13 under at Royal Liverpool. Is going to be an incredible score in the end, right? Um, and he dominated it, especially Friday and Thursday
The
and Friday.
round he shot Friday was the tournament. To
Yeah,
shoot 64 in those conditions where no one else was even close to that.
yep, agreed, agreed. But yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody expected him to win, truthfully. Um, But kudos to him, man. Two kind of odd winners, right? Wyndham Clark and Brian Harmon, kind of odd winners for the majors this year.
Mhm.
But of course, I gotta bring him up.
I knew is this some Rory talk? I knew he was gonna get in here.
I gotta bring him up. I gotta bring him up. Has he reached
Get
his
it out,
prime?
get it off your chest, bud.
Has he reached his prime, and is he on the decline?
I think he's been on the decline the last couple of years now.
You think? Even though he's shooting well and getting a lot of top five, top tens,
I mean,
and having a win.
it doesn't matter if he's playing well. He can't. He's got such a mental hurdle now with these majors. We've been saying it the last 3 times that he's kind of been in contention. He he gets himself in position, right? And we thought on Sunday he was 3 under through 4. We're like, something might be brewing here where he kind of makes it at least interesting. Then the man could not make anything the rest of the way. It's and it conditions were difficult, right, on Sunday for especially that for pretty much all day. But ideally speaking, like we thought he'd be in the mix. I think this him winning the Scottish actually hurt him because
Wow.
him winning the week before puts all the pressure back on him again because he was already going to be under pressure that Royal Liverpool was the last time he won a major at that course where he battled with Ricky Fowler. And then you have to factor in again, you got that conditions were different. Phil's the only player to do it, go Scottish Open back to back weeks. So it doesn't get done. I was honestly rooting for McIntyre to win the Scottish because I thought it would be more entertaining for Rory to maybe make some noise. No, seriously though, no one knows who Robert McIntyre really is if you follow golf. He plays on the European Tour, but from Scotland, by the way, would have been a great story to win his home Open. But
Yep. Yep.
Rory birdied 17 and 18 to reel him back in after blowing
Hit a
it on that Sunday.
hit a
If you
hell of a 2 iron. Hell of a two
oh
iron.
that gorgeous man, that thing that didn't even get off the freaking ground.
Got that damn right.
But
Huh.
I think him winning actually kind of hurt him and put that extra envelope of pressure that he was already facing. It's just a mental gap for him now. And I don't think he gets there. I think he
Well,
might be capped with major championships at where he's at.
we got what, another 200 something days until we're back in Augusta, and hopefully he looks to do the what is it called again? Oh
Career
God, oh,
Grand Slam.
the career Grand Slam. Will he do it? Probably not. you know.
Way to
Well,
way to keep the public up for that one. By the way, I just got my Augusta application got denied, so I'm not going in April either. So Rory, you might as
yeah,
well not go in the first place because I can't go.
yeah. My chances were as high as the Washington Commanders' chances to make the playoffs this year, so 0. So it is what it is, folks. It is what it is. Um, but yeah, like I said, the Open
What do you think? Is it for Rory? Is he done? Is it over for him?
has been done for a while. I've been saying this. Brooks Koepka, Brooks Koepka to me is his what he thought he could be, and he's not. Brooks Koepka is him. The way I look at it. That's the way I look at it. Like I think Roy just peaked so early that the expectations for him are still when he was young, and it's just not. It's just not there. Now maybe does he rebound like Ricky Fowler is kind of this year? Maybe. Do I think so? No. But I don't think he took as much of a drop as Ricky did. Like Ricky almost fell off the face of the earth. Like Rory's still there, but he hasn't won it all. And I just don't see that happening. I just think the talent of golf right now is at an all-time high. Every week you could have somebody else new. Scotty Scheffler was having the best iron driving all week, but couldn't make a putt.
I mean, the man had to have the bunker hit his ball to a foot to make the cut.
Yep. John Rahm had to shoot, I think, the best round at Royal Liverpool
Yep.
ever. Steve
Ever in a major
chance.
championship to put him in
Um,
contention.
Victor Hovland was almost right there. Cam Smith was dropping putts left and right. You know, it was there was the leaderboard had some new names on it, which we always see new names at the Open.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, when it came to it, the big names are still there, and they're gonna always be there. And I just think Rory's starting to fall behind a little bit, and these bigger names that are now starting to make household names, they're gonna start catching up to him if they haven't already.
No, I think so. I think my biggest takeaway from the Open is that I think Jason Day is going to get another one before we're said and done here. The man's playing some really good golf. And if I think his issue was just his iron game was not as locked in as it what usually is. His short game was immaculate. His putting is always great, but I think his iron game was a little off this week, but he still finished in a tie for second. I would not be surprised if Jason Day kind of creeps in maybe next year and puts himself in a real good shot to potentially steal one.
Patrick Stetson sliding in a little top 20 there.
Yeah, how about the hometown boy Matthew Jordan? Had to
Yeah.
qualify, hit the first tee shot in his home event as
Yep.
he's a member there, and books himself a spot for next year with a T10.
Oh, good for him. Good for him.
No one will ever know who that kid is, but we gave you a little background for
Yeah, it's kind of like Michael Block. Block party still going on over
him.
here
Yeah,
in the U.S. I'll tell you
damn
that.
straight.
So, yeah, so now we're looking forward to the Ryder Cup coming up. We got the FedEx Cup as well coming up. I got my golf league playoff starting Wednesday. So big stuff in golf going on here, ladies
Yeah,
and gentlemen.
how are you looking for these playoffs next week? How's the game
So
look? We looking sharp? Are we a little rusty?
the driver's feeling good right now, I will say.
All
The
right.
irons are hit and miss a little bit, and the putting's always there. But got a tough matchup this week. Got a guy that's a little more on the consistent side. He doesn't blow up a lot. Just a consistent bogeys, double bogey guy, giving him a stroke a hole. It's gonna be interesting to see round one. It's gonna be a tough matchup. It's gonna really
Tough,
be a tough
tough
matchup.
matchup. Are we advancing or are we gonna be an early round elimination?
I mean, the goal's going to be to advance, but we're going to know after the second or third hole where we're going to stand after the
So
day.
I'll get a text message on three. It's a wrap.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to know instantly. First hole is a par four bunker down the center, and I clear the bunker every time. But if we get out of there par and the second hole is a par five, if we get out of there par birdie, and he goes double-double, I mean, buddy, we're in for it here. We might go for it on 3. Drivable par 4 over water. I might be pulling it out. If not, got to play it safe. 7-iron, you hit wedge in. But we're gonna see. I'm giving them stroke a hole. Gonna be a tough matchup, right? Gonna be a tough matchup. I mean, I'm the 13th seed. He's the 4th seed. What do you want me to do here? I'm
Oh,
the underdog.
hey, there's always a 13 that upsets a 4. Why not you?
Well, there's only one of them in this league, but why not
Well,
me?
well, why not you? There's a 13. I'm giving you the March Madness pep talk. Hey, somebody lock in a 13 to take a 4. It happens.
Exactly. I'm looking for an Oral Roberts upset here. You know what I mean? But it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting. Got a lot of competitors. I made it to the championship last year. Lost by 1 stroke last year on the 18th hole.
Oh,
So we're looking to get back there. We're itching to get back there, and we're gonna see how it works out this
playoffs
coming
9
week.
or 18 until the championship.
So it's 9 till the championship.
Ooh.
So just got to get through 2 weeks. That's it. That's it. So the handicap's nice. The handicap's low. I don't sandbag. The handicap's low.
Attaboy.
So we're gonna see how it goes. So
Oh, I go. You're better than me, man. I just go out and play.
amen to that. Amen. So all right, well, folks, we don't want to leave you too long. A long episode here. We had a lot to talk about. So we're gonna be back. We'll be back next. Yeah, we'll be back next week. We'll be back next week. We'll be back next week talking more another division we're gonna break down, and probably a little bit more stuff we'll talk about. I'll talk about my match, maybe hopefully a win, maybe a
Oh,
loss.
definitely got to talk about the match.
Yeah, so we'll get into it and stay tuned. Maybe got some updates coming up. Blaine might have some updates coming up for us here, and we'll go from there. So, well, folks, it's been a good ride here as always. So make sure you tune in next week, and I will talk to you all later.